yourselves for hungry zombies, killer clowns, masked psychopaths, and chainsaw-wielding fiends. Spooky season is upon us, and we'll be your guide through some of Southern California's finest scare attractions. From nightmarish mazes to terrifying jump scares, we'll be reviewing every creature, ghostly whisper, and scream as we give you an inside look into the heart-pounding, bone-chilling world of haunted houses and immersive events. Turn off the lights, lock the doors, and join us for this spine-tingling special edition of Scripts and Screams. Now your hosts with the ghosts, Jessica Morgan and Chris Carter.
And we're back.
Yeah.
And back on the board.
And yes, that's right. Jessica's back on the board.
We just have to announce it right away so people understand and can get hyped for a great time because Jessica's on the board, y'all.
It's basically a party.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I don't know what that is.
It's magical.
Oh my gosh.
Anywho. We're back.
We're back.
Towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
But we had to save this one for a little bit because this is one we decided to go to a couple times.
Yeah, and we've done this event in the past, and it always feels like you have to go more than once. All of these events kind of feel like this, but specifically the one we're going to be talking about and reviewing tonight, you just have to go more than once, in my opinion. And I think that's going to come up a couple times tonight as we talk about it.
Right.
And it's
hard to do everything at once. You can definitely, I think, this year we've really felt that, your experience can change depending on when you go or what you do. You know what I mean?
Things. We're definitely going to talk about that for
Yeah.
sure. And it's always sad. Spooky season is kind of wrapping up, winding down. As we're recording this, it is October 26th. With Halloween being less than a week away, there's a little bit of sadness creeping in, but,
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Steve's got it right.
No!
Mike's got it. Mike knows what's up.
That's how it feels.
Yeah, but we do this so that way, hopefully for the people that are listening and for us that next year we're like, all right, well, we're excited about this. And did it get better? Did it get worse? We do have one episode after this, which will be our Golden Pumpkin patent title or title pending, I should say. The Golden Pumpkin Awards. Yeah.
Movie.
Hit it, Ash. In which case we'll be kind of talking about all the great things that we went through, some things that you can't miss. If you can still go. If you can avoid them. But but this episode, this haunt, I mean, it's near and dear to my heart personally. We were coming to this haunt. We weren't even living into California. We weren't living.
That's
in California.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this was one of the first ones we went to together.
Yeah, this is the haunted attraction that I think people associate Los Angeles with.
And what is it called?
It's called Halloween Horror Nights.
Universal Studios Hollywood. Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, it is that. My goodness, that's quite the introduction.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a staple. We compare every other event basically to this event. You know what I mean?
This is the measuring stick.
It kind of is. I still will stick by saying that I think it's the scariest event basically you can go to of all of them. You know what I mean? They all have their great things, but it is very hard to beat Halloween Horror Nights when it comes to just how hard your hits will hit. You know what I mean? How hard is that jump scare actually hitting you?
And then a Halloween vibe. It's this weird Halloween rock and roll party vibe. It's just
definitely a part. Yeah, rock and roll. Like you said, it's very.
It's exciting. There is an excitement there.
Adrenaline.
We go through peaks and valleys, and John Murdy, who's very vocal about his process, and he's the creative director for Halloween Horror Nights. On Twitter /X, he'll talk about some of the mazes. Got really good insight. But what he talks about, what goes into these mazes and the things that they're looking for. And I read that they're already on House 2 for next year. They've already wrapped House 2 for next year. But it's impossible to really talk shit about HHN. There was a point that I'm like, you know what? HHN is rinse and repeat, and our roommate Dustin is kind of like, yeah, it's a lot of noise and people in your face and woo, but you do that. I think people take that position because of how successful and how good it is. Like,
Yeah, your
know.
expectations get high. So sometimes I think it can, if it doesn't hit as well, you're kind of like disappointed by
well,
it.
even if you like it, you find a reason to not, right? It's like that Batman
Yeah.
saying either you
Like a
guys
human thing, right?
exactly,
Human
yeah.
condition to try to complain.
And then when you come back and you do all these events like we've done, and you go back to HHN, it's just it never fails to not be awesome. Like
Right.
it's always awesome.
It's
so
always awesome. And this year we decided to get a different kind of pass. Usually we just go one time. Or sometimes we'll like decide to squeeze in another one. But we decided to go ahead and get the frequent fear pass.
yeah.
Yeah, so that we could go a few times and just enjoy it. You know, otherwise, usually we try to go on like a slow night so that we can hit everything. Or you have to buy like front of line pass if you really do want to hit everything.
And early entry, which they charge for now.
Yeah, early entry used to be such an awesome thing, and now they charge for it. So those are the moments I'll gripe about. Where I'd be like, meh.
It's important to bring up that too, because the freaking fear pass, which is $149, that's a lot of money. But I mean, at the same time, when you made the mention of we try and pick a slower day, there are no slow days. There are just slower days, like you
They're
said.
slower, yeah.
Yeah, there's very, very rarely a line that you'll find less than 5 to 10 minutes. Like Not Scary Farm, if you wait 15 minutes, it's a long time to wait on the Thursdays and Sundays that we choose to go.
Right.
Avoid these places on Saturdays and Fridays like the plague. They are just hard. Your lines are going to be long. It's
Or
gonna
just
be,
know that, yeah, you're just not going to hit everything. You'll be okay.
Yeah. But if you go on Thursdays and Sundays, like our kind of plan is, yeah, I mean, so the lines at HHN, they're always there. It is the most popular place in Southern California when it comes to attendance for their haunted attraction.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed.
And so last year we had a great time. Last year we didn't do a podcast about HHN because we went towards the end of the season.
Sure.
And it was my favorite event that we did last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the Latin Monsters was a huge
one was
hit.
great, yeah.
They did a great thing with the Evil Dead Rise. That was a great set piece too.
Oh, yeah, that one was really good.
You know what I mean? And like, I think last year I didn't expect much of it, but after going, I think that we had talked about it and we're like, yeah, let's get the frequent fear pass, which allows you to go during a certain time, certain times of the month.
Yeah, and it basically doesn't let you go like Friday or Saturdays, which again, we usually avoid anyways.
Right.
And yeah, you can start going and go as many times as you can within the days they allow you to go,
33 days.
which is a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
So it's for us, and then it's the same price as going for a front of line pass. So that was kind of where we waited out. And we're like, you know what? We either buy a front of line pass if we really don't want to wait in lines, or we just get this one, and then we can go several nights, and maybe we won't hit everything in one night, but we're okay with that.
Right. And as we've kind of gone through these events, and we usually our work schedules the next day, if we're going on a Thursday or Sunday, you have to work the next day.
Sure.
So you don't want to be in line at 1:30 in the morning or 1 in the morning with your feet
Right.
hurting and cold and just,
Yeah, this way we could leave early, and we
Yeah.
were fine with it. So
which, hey, we're there for a couple of mazes. We're there for the first maze line that gets to be past 45 minutes. We're leaving. We'll come back. Shut it down. Like, shut it down just like that.
it's like, hold up. No
yeah.
more.
But okay, so all right. All that being said, we got our tickets. When they started announcing the mazes, what did you
Yeah.
think about that? Right? Because
So this year I wasn't as excited because of the mazes. Like we got our pass pretty early too. I think we were trying to make sure we had a good deal. I know Orlando's ones was selling out early.
yes, that scared the shit out of us.
Yeah, they had their frequent fear pass that's just sold out. And don't get me wrong, I hear Orlando is killing it. Like they have more mazes and
Yeah.
it's just a great time. Really want to get out there at some point, but that's okay. We'll stick with Hollywood. They didn't have as many IPs this year as they usually have.
Yeah.
And the ones that they did were maybe not as exciting. I mean, they had the big one that like everyone that at least I was excited for was A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
I was excited for that one. I was like, oh, okay, that'll be really cool. But otherwise, it's like they had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they were doing like the Legacy of Leatherface.
Which was unclear on what they were going to do because they've
Yeah.
done Texas Chainsaw for years now.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
it's
that's the whole thing.
been
Is
recycled.
Yeah, exactly. They've had him either like in mazes with all the other legendary kind of big killers, or just like the different movies they'll bring him in and do that. And so it was one of those where kind of like how they do Halloween a lot too, like the movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those where it starts to feel rinse and repeat a little bit. So not as excited. They had Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So also not something that we are huge fans of. And then Insidious The Further is what they were calling it. So in that we've seen them do an Insidious as well.
Right.
So it was kind of one of those where we were like, as much as some of those titles are cool, we just were like, well, we've seen them do some of these. The Weeknd came back as well, and they were doing a new one called Nightmare Trilogy. So it felt a little bit like they were gonna recycle things.
I wasn't excited when I heard it. When they started dropping, I'm like, maybe we fucked up.
We were excited they were doing Monstros again. I remember that because,
True.
like you said, the nightmares of Latin America, the monsters of Latin America from
great maze.
the year before. Yeah. And so we were like, oh, they're doing a second one. That should be cool. And then they did Enter Blumhouse for their Terror Tram, which I did think was a smart choice for them. They've done Blumhouse a lot.
A shit ton.
Yeah.
Insidious is a Blumhouse movie too.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was nice I was like, you know what? The Tram's probably a good place for them because they have a lot of titles now. And every time they've had one of their mazes, they're kind of cool, but it's just really tiny snapshots generally because it's like you have to fit a bunch in a maze.
And Blumhouse, it's hard to make the ones that they're talking about here scary because Blumhouse, Megan wasn't very, in my opinion, wasn't very scary. Happy Death Day, in my opinion, wasn't very scary. Freaky Friday, in my opinion, wasn't very scary. So like, it's a fun way of kind of being like, well, there's not super scary, but we can like put you in an environment when you're walking through it. And I think
that's true.
We'll talk
Terror
about
Tram,
what they did.
and I will say that Terror Tram is not generally a scary one.
It's an easy one to be like, yeah, I don't really want to do this.
It's exciting, but Anywho, so yeah, I don't think we were super pumped for it. There were some things we were like a little like that could be cool, but it didn't feel like it was going to have a lot of pizzazz.
I was excited for the Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodline story because
it's true. And I love that.
So they had done a couple of their monster stories, right? They did, I think it was Dracula versus Wolfman a couple years ago. Or maybe it was Frankenstein versus Wolfman.
Well, yeah, they like to cycle them all in and, make them verse each other or whatever.
And so the ones that they've done, I think that we've done 2 of those now, and they were really fun. They take a lot of pride, obviously, right?
Clearly.
They're theirs IP. So yeah, those are a lot of fun to go through. So I'm like, oh, well, this is an all-female one. And it's like, Bride of Frankenstein, which we haven't seen yet, and Van Helsing's daughter, and I think Dracula's daughter of Dracula, which funny enough,
the wives of Dracula.
Oh, the wives. I thought it was daughter of Dracula. But yeah, I'm like, oh, that'd be fun. And then Dead Exposure, I was excited about because it's original IP. It gives them freedom, which we have said in the past, which really kind of the IPs they pick limit them from being creatively free to make their own spooky little thing. And so I'm like, all right, I was for those 2. I'm like, I'd like to hit those, and we did hit those first night we went.
It's true. Pandora's Box was one I remember that when they did that
Pandora's
one. It was so fun. So I do agree that sometimes when they do their own, and again, Orlando usually does their own.
So many of their own. Yeah.
So, and that usually hits hard. So yeah, there were some things, there was enough for us to still be like, well, we already bought these tickets and we're going to still be hyped.
Well, I mean, last year, Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
There was Last of Us. And so
I was so hyped about that
everybody, right? Like that, if you figure that was the flagship IP this year, it was probably A Quiet Place, but there's no way, in my opinion, at least at the time, because Last of Us web series had just come out, just killing it. It brought a lot of attention back to Last of Us. And so when I say just came out, it came out within the past year.
It was the web series that got me. I was like, web series, but
my bad. The HBO series. Yeah, you're right. We watch it on the web. That's why. Or we watch it during Apple TV.
Streaming.
But, yeah. Dang, that's what I meant.
It's okay. It's okay.
So as far as the big IPs, I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, cautiously optimistic because, all right, maybe we'll get some really cool new shit out. All right. So anyway, 4 scare zones. Scare zones are just like, you walk through them. They're whatever. They're not that big of a deal. There used to be many more. I'll say that. It feels like the scare zones, they really rolled back on and it just kind of feels that they're just throwing them into places for, I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's a real big reason why they put them in certain places, to me at least.
Yeah, I really miss like the old days where like you kind of really had to pass through certain ones and they were spread out enough and everything.
Yeah.
Now it's like 2 of them are right when you enter.
Do you think they're the same one?
Yeah, they kind of blend together. So, which I get, it's great. Like when you enter into Halloween Horror Nights, it is usually like a great feeling, and it should.
Yeah.
It should hype you up, get that adrenaline going. Like, and they do that with putting both of them there, but still felt like in the past they've just had a bigger one that was one single one there.
In the past, that one that we walked through would be just one altogether.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of being like, this is 2 scare zones. You're like, is it?
Funny enough, too, like the ones you walk through with the chainsaw punks who obviously are chainsaws, and where a lot of them have skull masks. The
And
second
that's
one is
also like very on par for what they usually do.
yeah, right. The I think if you've been to a haunt this year, if you've or in the past 10 years, you've seen the chainless chainsaw that's just kind of being thrown around, and then it rolls into Skull Lords. And if you're not paying attention, you could be like, "Oh, are these two different or are they the same?" I thought they were the same, but they're not. They're different.
Yeah, right. Like once you're told they're different, you get it that they're different.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you were like, I just thought I was being terrorized.
Ye-
You know?
yeah. I mean, all right. So where should we start? I mean, we could talk about maybe some expectations, which we've actually already done that. We could roll into the mazes, roll into the scare zones. But I don't want to spoil too much because I know that you're big on the non-spoiling. So how far do you want to go before we go?
Look, I mean, we've talked about what it is and stuff. I think we're about time for that. You know what I mean?
So we'll touch on this again, but I want to ask, we mentioned it before. Is HHN something that you suggest that people go to twice? Is this something you have to go to twice?
It's expensive. So I think that's my hesitation with saying like you have to or whatever. But I know that if we hadn't gone twice, I don't know if we would have hit everything. I think we might have skipped. We always usually skip like one maze. And we might have skipped a maze that ended up being a really good maze for us, I think.
Yeah.
And we also were able, because we've gone several times, to go through mazes a couple of times. And we've experienced that you could hit a maze and hit it right at the worst possible time, which is when they do shift changes.
Yeah.
Because that does have to happen. These people, scare actors, can't be scare acting all night. Like
We're people too.
they're people too.
We're people too, I should say.
We're people.
Yes, a disclaimer. I worked for HHN in 2017. I was one of the Ashes in Ash vs. Evil Dead. So I'm quasi-famous. No!
No, it's actually really sick. And that's how we learned a lot of stuff, honestly, is because, you had these rotations where you're in with there's basically a group of people who are doing the same role that you are.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 of you, basically, right?
Yeah.
And then because depending on what that is, you rotate out, whether it's like 30 minutes on and off and going in, or
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
what it
like,
is.
yeah, you know what I mean? So you rotate so much. And what I've noticed over time is that unfortunately, you would hope that the rotation would be somebody, when you're ready to get relieved, they are already there, ready to go. You step out and someone's stepping in immediately, kind of a
a tap
thing.
on the shoulder. Hey, I'm here. Get out.
Yeah,
Beat and everything.
exactly. And, with that many actors in there, it's not like somebody can sit there and monitor them all and make sure this is happening. But instead, the feeling I get is that when someone feels like their shift part is over, they go and take off. And then it's like, hopefully the next person is going to show up at some point.
Yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to be.
And with it timed out that way, it doesn't seem staggered enough. There ends up being basically, if you enter like on the hour or on a certain time, you might go through this maze and miss half of the actors, I would say easily.
Yeah.
Like that's the very unfortunate thing. And we absolutely, the very first time, well, I guess I shouldn't get into it yet, but there are certain mazes that we went through where we missed. It felt like 75% of the actors were probably gone.
At least that.
It was crazy. And so you just were walking in empty rooms, not understanding what's happening. There were like scenes that would happen where only one of them's there and not the rest. And you were like, what just happened?
And the audio is pre-looped.
Yeah.
Right. So whether
don't
there's a
talk in
person
there,
there or
yeah.
not, you're still going to get that voice cue. And it's like, oh shit, something's supposed to be going on. And clearly no one's in here to do that. So,
No.
Yeah.
And it can, when that happens, the maze sucks. Like flat out, it makes you go, well, that was a
This
terrible
sucks.
maze.
Yeah.
And then if you were to hit it again, like we were able to do, and you actually don't get a shift change, it could be really freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
Like that's the crazy thing. So when people say this is my favorite maze or this isn't, and this goes for all haunts basically at this point, but it's like, it really depends on your experience. You might hit a terrible time and not be able to do it. And that kind of sucks. And I don't know, like that's where we get like, it's great to hit a maze a couple of times if you can. But it's hard for me to be like, you should go twice, because that does actually feel like a fault on their part and not a fault to you.
I mean, the staffing, right? Then that's,
why am I paying extra to go again if I waited in line for however long and then went through a maze where nobody was freaking in
it's
there?
a huge knock against the how they run it over there. And generally, I know when I was there, you weren't supposed to leave until someone relieved you, but for the most part, a lot of the people just left. Again, it's kind of a knock on wood. well, I shouldn't say knock on wood, but it's kind of a thankless position,
Yeah.
right? People don't really care. A lot of some of the scare actors get kind of harassed. A couple of actors in our movie have actually been assaulted.
When they
by-
were being scare actors.
Yeah. So
In mazes. And you'd seen some weird shit where you just get someone dumb who comes in and
Yeah.
does something stupid in
Yeah.
the area you're in.
they serve alcohol there. I mean, people come
Yeah.
through intoxicated or God knows on what else. And, people don't respect the set pieces and therefore that goes down to the actors. So unfortunately,
yeah, you jump out at the
it's-
wrong person and they react a terrible way.
Yeah.
They could end up hitting you.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of them are just like doing a macho thing and being terrible.
And so, the staffing part of it, in theory, it is supposed to be, you're not supposed to leave until someone relieves you. But I would say in our maze and when we were doing it, that was never true. Well, it was maybe half the time true.
Yeah.
So, but
And
anyway,
it definitely, at least like with our experience, it definitely feels like it's not the truth in a lot of these.
especially what we're going to talk about tonight too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
That's all I got to say about that.
Before we hit the spoiler flag,
Well,
I'm going to talk more about it later.
okay.
Okay, anyway.
Stick around.
Is Tamara here?
Oh, goodness.
No. We already told you there is no Tamara here.
Yeah, Christopher.
Yeah. Which, by the way, money's on that makes it to next year's Haunted House or Wolfman.
Oh,
What-
are those your guesses? I mean, Wolfman's the new movie that's gonna come out.
And it's a Blumhouse film.
Oh, it's Blumhouse. You're
Yeah,
right.
so there'll be a Wolfman maze.
But you know what? They haven't always jumped on it right away when those things happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we'll
It
see.
usually takes them a little bit.
Write this down.
I'm gonna say it's the next year after that.
Oh, shit.
Write that down.
No way. So, all right. We talked about this with the scare zones, and specifically, I think maybe we talk about scare zones, mazes, and just kind of what expectations are and what I think what worked and what didn't for HHN. And we can say that again. We've gone 3 times so far. We will go a 4th time. We're going to go again on Halloween. Just to that's kind of our celebration this year. There's no big Halloween party for us. We're not handing out candy. We're like, we got a free pass. Let's go to Universal Studios and hit HHN one last time.
Yes!
Proper way of sending off spooky season 2024.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we can confidently speak upon all the mazes at this point, give some positives, some negatives, also some suggestions, which is important for people who have never been, which,
Yeah.
hey, there's people coming all the time.
Should we start with our least favorite?
I'm down to start with my least favorite.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Well, tell me, Christopher. Christopher Carter.
in terms of mazes or scare zones.
Oh yeah, we're on scare zones first.
Just
huh?
real quick, I just want to just talk about them because we mentioned before the spoiler flag or spoiler siren was rang that the scare zones have kind of gone down in terms of scope, and I completely agree. I think that the first 2 are fun, but they kind of feel like, hey, keep it moving. Let's get your ass inside the park. Maybe that's why, right? Like keep it going, get in the line.
Yeah, I mean, scare zones are fun because they really do. You're right. Like, it generally can keep the area clear, but it does get you hyped for it. It keeps you in it. Like, you know what I mean? It can kind of take away if you're just going line to line and sitting around and waiting for the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I used to love scare zones.
Oh, me too.
Halloween Horror Nights.
And it sucks because there's one called the Murder Crows, and we have 2 stilt walkers dressed up as crows and a small animatronic bird. And it's the tiniest thing. The space that this is created maybe
Yeah.
would fit inside of a medium-sized living room.
It is really
it's like,
small.
what the fuck is this? Like,
You
this
can see the whole thing like immediately.
Yeah, this is like a prop setup. This is like something like
And
set
you're right. I
deck.
think the most actors I saw were like 3 in it at a time.
I only ever saw 2.
I mean, yeah.
The crows are great. The crows are massive. They're stilt walkers dressed in crows, glowing eyes, interacting with the crowd. Fantastic.
Those people are great. Like, they're literally dancing, they're running
Yeah.
around, like they're having
Yeah.
a great time.
But there were stilt walkers in the beginning too with the
Yeah.
Skull Lord part. So it's not like you're limited to this small space, right? Like
No.
you don't have to. But Murder Crows for me was fun, but it was like, oh my God, someone dropped the ball on this. Let's make a scare zone and said you made a scare closet. It's
right.
big miss for me. Big miss.
I could see that. Yeah, I think that would probably be my most disappointing. I think I'm with you. Because even when you kind of see the area, you're at first like, oh, that looks cool. There's like this creepy animatronic bird and stuff. And but it's so tiny. It's just so tiny.
You're out of it before you even realize you're in it.
Yeah, you're
which
like,
has
what is
never been that
What
way.
is this? Yeah, exactly.
The Luchadores Monstruosos. I hope I'm saying that right. Good God, my mom would kill me. As you walk out of the Monsters of Latin America Part 2, you are pushed right into the scare zone, and
Right.
great, lots of light, lots of fog. It's got and on both sides you've got kind of these posters of these just like, I guess, dead wrestlers, which kind of to me is a really weird choice. To me, this is like, this is of all the things you
They're like
could have
monster
done.
wrestlers.
Yeah, like this is what we fucking landed on. To
I
me,
think it's because it was an extension of like the Latin America stuff, right? So it just was like, oh, okay, luchadores, that's like Latin America. You know what I mean?
yeah, For me, it was I loved going through it.
Yeah.
The actors were excited.
They also were really
Yeah.
excitable.
These guys had great energy. Right?
Yeah.
All of them did. But in terms of the like theme,
Yeah.
I hated it.
Mm.
They had one of the Eternal Monsters there. I forget what year it was. It was soon after I left because a couple of people I was amazed with. It was the same thing. You come out, the fog is high, the lights are bright. They've got posters up in terms of their theme. They've got like people aren't there, and they were Draculas or vampires.
Oh yeah.
And one of my good buddies, Ricardo Guzman, he was one of the Ashes. He played Dracula in they let me know without saying that I remember you and hey, welcome back and all that shit. So that was really cool. I just didn't like the theme. That was probably my favorite scare zone in terms of the acting, the set deck and the lights.
They like lit you up at one point.
They did. They got me a couple of times.
Yeah.
And maybe does it really matter if you're getting scared whether it's someone dressed as a skull wearing wrestler with a machete or if it's a vampire? Does it matter?
Well, and it's an interesting question because I'm with you. It's like what you're pointing out are really good points, and they make me go like, oh yeah, okay, I could see why these might be like kind of your least favorites. But for me, I think it does go down to, almost like, well, at least it's an inventive creature, or at least like the actors were really cool or something like that. My least favorite is probably the chainsaw punks.
Really?
Yeah, and mostly because it just feels very overdone for them.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all they're doing is they're just running around with chainsaws and stuff. You know what I mean?
And in the opening event, which you've seen, I don't think I've seen. The opening event is a chainsaw.
No, that's the chase out at the end.
Chainsaw chase out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you stay till close, they'll always chase you out with chainsaws. They get a bunch of people out to do that, which is really fun. But it's one of those where I'm like, okay, you've just created that into a scare zone, basically.
Unoriginal.
When they usually already have chainsaw people out.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, for me, it just didn't feel inspired on the scare actor level. While I at least appreciated the idea of like murder crows and the luchadors, even though it was a weird choice, I would like they went with it, and the actors were like hitting it in weird ways. You know what I mean? It was entertaining and funny.
It's like people say, make a strong choice as an actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did. So, and they're all fun. They're just, I feel like they're lacking, but hey, hopefully next year we'll get a better crop of scare zones. And
what did you feel about the crown of, is it skulls or
it's
something?
fun, but to me, it wasn't as separated from the scarecrow punks. The chainsaw punks. The scarecrow punks would be a great scare zone. John, write that down, John.
Heard it here first.
I liked him because of the scope. I liked, by the way, Immortal Masks. Congratulations. All of the Skull Lords were wearing Immortal Masks. I thought that was fucking cool.
Yeah, I recognized a couple of them.
The costumes, because they're all black and, they're walking through the night and they can get up on you very fast. There was a female one that was the female shape and she was in like a black coat or wearing like a red mask, and it was like Scully. Oh, it was good. It looked great. That to me is a big difference between that and like Not Scary Farm. Where Not Scary Farm masks are like slip masks you can get from, I mean, not to knock Spirit, but we love Spirit. But when you go to an event like this, when you see Immortal Masks on HHA, like that tracks. This is why this event kicks so much ass. And when you see masks like we see at Not Scary Farm, I'm like, oh, that was cool. Yeah. Cool. Walk on by. No big deal. Not a big deal.
Right.
And they had like 7 scare zones. Not Scary Farm?
Knots. Yeah. I'm with you on that. A little inspired.
Yeah, uninspiring. Right. So what was your favorite?
I guess, that's a good question. I think I like the interaction with the luchadores the most. So I think that one was the most entertaining for me because it was a bigger area. And it was, there was like so much to look at and stuff, which was distracting, which meant they could scare you more and stuff.
Yeah.
So as much as it may be an odd choice, I actually still really enjoyed it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think I would have loved Murder Crows the most if it was a little bigger.
Well, yeah, that would have been like if there was like a wall facade, or you had to walk through something like the
honestly, just a
Luchadadas,
little bigger, just a little bit.
make it a nest. You know, you're kind of walking through like
That was like some cool stuff. They just, it just was
Yeah.
tiny.
yeah.
So that happened. Now we go on to maze.
Mazes. This is where HHN kind of makes its money.
Because I love it in here. I fucking love it.
We fucking love it. Well, this is the opposite of that. This is I hate it.
Oh.
This is
Oh, my bad.
no, it's okay because
on.
okay.
Oh, hell no.
Okay, we're ready.
So bottom for me, the least favorite. And this isn't again, this is for me a knock on a lot of things. This is actors, this is set deck. I'm going to talk about all that shit.
Tell me.
It's unfortunately going to be the eternal bloodlines. Universal monsters.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Yeah, that one. That was unfortunate.
It was for a bunch of reasons. I'll ask you in a second what you thought about this, Maze. But for me, when you had mentioned before we ran the spoiler siren, how staffing can be an issue, this is exactly what we're talking about.
We already ran the spoiler siren.
Well, I know, but like when you were alluding to it. Right?
Oh, copy. Okay.
So, also huge. This was in one of the stages that they made so many horror movies. I got really inspired as a horror filmmaker. We're getting to do a maze at Universal Studios Hollywood on stage. I can't remember, but I will get it here in a second.
Yeah, it was like where they did Frankenstein, which was like the birth of like their Universal monsters and stuff. And then I think it did like some Jurassic Park.
Yeah, stage 12.
Yeah, stage 12.
So if you Google stage 12 of the films that have been made at Universal lot, it's just incredible, right? So like there's
really cool.
There's magic in that place. There really is.
Yeah, it's cool to go on a sound stage and be able to do one of these too. You know what I mean?
And all the while we're walking through this maze, and it was so, again, I don't know if it was a staffing issue.
It was.
It was a staff. Okay, so it was a staffing
At
issue.
least the very first time we went through, absolutely a staffing issue. Or okay, maybe not a staffing issue, but either way, like a shift change. This is exactly what we're talking about, where we hit that shift change, because we went through this one another time and we got a lot more.
Yeah.
But we were very lucky. Even the second time we went through this one, I was having to slow down and wait, because it's like we were about to exit a room as the actor was entering in, like the newer actor or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those where if I didn't slow down, if I just walked at a normal pace, we would have had the same exact experience, basically.
Which is terrible. Like,
it was so heartbreaking.
And this maze depended on interaction. Like, it's basically a theatrical show that you're walking through.
100%. This one's literally telling you a story. Not all of their mazes like tell stories, I would say.
Barely any of them do.
Yeah, and this one legit was telling a story. So it was basically a live play that we were watching.
Yeah.
And so now you don't have the actors there to do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
We like
horrible.
walked through so many rooms that had absolutely nobody in it. And then, like I said, there was a scene we went into, and one of the actors was there for a 3-person scene. And so it's like she was there and did like her small little part, but nobody else, there was nothing else. So it was just like, what did we just watch? What had just happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, it was so upsetting. And then you would walk into a room. There's even like a part where they're like gonna do a beheading, basically.
Yeah.
And
There's like a fucking stage
there's
almost.
There's a freaking stage there, and there's the fake body with like headless body sitting there, and that's it. Like you walk in and that's what the room is, unless you have the actor there to actually, rip the head off, hold the head, mess around with it, do whatever.
Yeah.
But they weren't there. So we just were like, oh, okay, something happened.
Right.
I don't know who that is because they don't have a head.
And that you missed, right? All that you know is something happens and you missed it, which fucking, it just sucked. And
it was so upsetting.
yeah, I was digging the story from what I was getting from it. Because there's
the second time we went through, we could at least get more of the story for sure.
Yeah, but for me, I wasn't impressed with the maze as a whole. I wasn't impressed with, like, obviously the staffing issue is probably the most glaring one. And what made it worse for me was that I had really high hopes for it. I was really excited. I'm like, this is going to be just like the other ones they've done with their new spin on it, but it wasn't anything like that. And for me, I mean, it was a huge miss, and nothing against anybody involved with it, but it just didn't land for me at all. At all.
It was like we said, it's that moment of you can just end up having a terrible experience because nobody is there.
Right. It's like you're walking through a room where something's there, but you don't know. So
Yeah, this one only had a little bit of redeeming for me when we went through the second time because then I did get like the story and I did get the scenes. So I felt okay about it, and there was like a really good pop for me towards the end or whatever.
but even then, you had to wait for it, right? Like to get that story and to
There was
see
some-
those scenes, like you still had to like
Yeah.
hold the line.
Oh
by
yeah, I
sandbagging
did.
it.
Yeah, I did, and that was me just being sheer determination.
I think there was a Frankenstein on stilts in that one.
Yes,
towards the end.
that's the big pop I'm talking
Okay,
about.
that one got
Yeah,
me too.
you get to the friend part, and then you hear his voice saying "friend."
I didn't hear any of that.
Oh yeah, so because that's like a throwback to Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
Like so, the part where it's towards the end, and the bride of Frankenstein is there with her dead friend and is saying "friend, friend." So
Oh.
even the first time we went through, she was there for that and saying "friend," and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool little throwback," but I had no idea. We go into the next hallway, and then you hear Frankenstein's voice say "friend." And then, yeah, there's a giant Frankenstein on stilts that comes out at you.
Scared the shit out of me.
Scared the shit.
Yeah, that might have been the biggest pop I got.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that was the one redeeming factor that doesn't put this one at the bottom for me.
Oh,
But otherwise, I think it would have been.
okay.
That
What's
one moment?
what is your zero maze? And be sure to hit it with the fucking sound cue too, because I don't want
Do I have to hit it with a sound
hit
cue?
it with the crickets one.
Oh, well, that's true, I guess. More like this. So mine, I'm actually, and I've told you this, that I'm a little bit biased because of how the line was handled in this one. My least favorite is Dead Exposure, Death Valley. That one was terribly disappointing for me. As an original maze, I feel like you can do so much, and I feel like they just created another zombie outbreak story.
Felt like it.
With like green goop or something. You know what I mean? Like,
monkeys.
and yeah, I guess there were monkeys supposedly. But I just, yeah, there wasn't a lot for me there. There wasn't a lot that was exciting or new. And I don't have anything memorable about it. Like, there's nothing really that stands out to me as like, oh, okay, yeah, you know?
But there was something memorable about getting into the maze for you.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, I might be a little biased. When we were standing in line, this line ended up being kind of longer for us. Like, this was one of the like longer lines of one of the days we stood in, which was maybe 30 minutes or something. And then they were letting in, of course, like the front of line people and the RIP tour people and stuff. That always happens, and I'm fine with that. But here's the thing: we got to a point where we were like towards the front of the line, or maybe even at the exact front of the line, and the person had stopped us and was waiting for more front of the line people to come through. In the sense that like nobody was there. You could see them way down the way, and he was calling for them to like, hurry up, come on, we're open, come on. And he sat there doing that for like 5 minutes or something. Like nobody, in other words, he could have stopped them, could have let other people in because clearly he wanted more people to go in the maze if he keeps calling them to hurry up. He could have let some of us in, and then by the time they got to the front of the line, he still could have let more people in. But instead, he sat there and just was like, look, let me make sure I clear out this one. It felt like he was purposely trying to make his line longer is basically what I got. And there is that. I sometimes wonder about these mazes that I'm like, do they get more notoriety if they're like, we had a long wait time? You know what I mean? For their maze?
I don't know, maybe. I know we get a survey at the end of every time we go. I get a survey. I don't know if you get one too. And they ask you about it. Like, which is your favorite? Which is your least? What do you think about line management? Call it line management.
I don't remember getting that.
Oh, I get it. I just got
I'm
one
gonna
too
have
for
to
the Sponsors
look.
one. Yeah. You know, Dead Exposure to me, I was excited for it too. Like I mentioned, original IP. But you know, I agree. This one was a longer maze. I feel like this was one of the longest mazes we went through. That there was also a staffing issue for me. There were definitely places for people to be and to pop out at that weren't there. And I don't know if we got it on a shift change because a couple of times you could see the group before us kind of reacting to something.
Sure.
And we didn't get that. And so, you know what I mean? I felt like that one it was a miss in terms of obviously staffing, but also creative intent. Like you mentioned, yeah, it's basically a zombie movie. And I get it, right? Like it's great to make some type of chemical outbreak that turns people into ravenous creatures hungry for human flesh. Like fucking it writes itself, but it's a little unoriginal at this point. And especially for HHN and John, he's already wrapped the second half of 2025. If this is what you landed on for this year, I mean, it's just lacking a little bit. For me.
Yeah, that's me too. And so that's why I just really didn't end up enjoying it.
Yeah, I'd like to hit it again. To be fair, we've only
Mhm.
hit this one once. We've hit almost all of these other ones.
It's true. I
at
refuse
least
to wait in a
twice.
line for this one if it's 20 minutes long. I'm just like, it's going to turn into 30. I basically decided my hatred is real.
And
Um,
you should know that because you can monitor the line times obviously through an app, and we do because again we don't want to send longer lines at this point. Dead Exposure was one of the longer lines all the time.
Yeah.
It never was a short 5, 15, 20-minute wait. It was always longer than that. So
Yeah, exactly. Because I had that thought where I was like, fine, I'd go through it if it was shorter, but it wasn't. And to me, I just keep looking at the people like, do you guys do this on purpose?
well, maybe they do, which would be terrible. Fuck.
I don't know, but I
All
hated
right.
it.
So do you have like a mid-tier maze? Like, because I mean,
Yeah,
ca-
I think I have a mid-tier maze probably.
okay, what's your mid maze?
Or I mean, I guess like my next least favorite or something
Okay.
after those two, which I guess, yeah, then makes it mid-tier, right? How many
'Cause-
mazes do we have?
So we have 8 mazes altogether.
Okay. So those are the bottom two, and they're the bottom two for me as well.
Okay.
So my next one would probably go ahead and be Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yeah.
I think that's my next one. That's what I would go with. It's mostly a fun maze. It's not a lot of scares. They had some cool stuff in there, which again, so it is more mid-tier-ish for me. But it just, it's. I think every time they do Ghostbusters, it's more for the spectacle. It's kind of like when they do Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more spectacle-y and
Fan
stuff.
service sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit fan service. So it looks kind of cool. I will say though that there actually was a pretty excellent moment in this one that is sticking out, in the sense of getting sprayed.
Oh yeah, slimed. You mean? Yes. Got slimed. They do a cool job at that, like kind of working. And I've seen the movie, but it wasn't. I didn't love the movie, but I
Yeah.
think that they obviously pushed a lot of that towards that. They put a lot into the maze. The slimy was really cool. They've got a Slimer that kind of comes out, and everybody's seen it. Kind of, oh, it's a Slimer coming out of the dark.
Yes.
It's not going to scare anybody. But bang! After you're like, oh, it's a Slimer, then you get shot
Then he
with the spray
sprays
water.
Oh my God. And they have one like right at the end. So you're just having to walk towards it and it's doing it. And I was able to finally figure out which way to go to not get more wet. But it was hilarious and frightening. So it's definitely entertaining. I don't want to
Sure.
knock against that. But just not super scary for me. You know what I mean?
Not at all. Although there was that guy who was
Yeah.
who was in the maze, and he looked like a patron, had just like hopped the fence and was inside of the set.
I can't remember what the ball is, right? But there's
I don't know.
some ball that I think gets the creature or something like that. I can't remember. But there's a there's a person playing this character who legit is in like civilian clothes and stuff. So you just
Yeah.
had this moment where you're like with the Ghostbusters and everybody else, and then there's like this person doing it, and you're like, "Did you forget your
All right,
costume?"
are
Or
you
like, "What's
lost?"
that?" And I was like staring at the dude, and then he put his ball at me, like it's like he knew, he could read my mind,
Yeah.
and was like, "You're judging me?
Take this ball.
Take this."
Yeah, that was funny. I think when we walked through the frozen room, that was cool. I thought.
There was cool stuff. Like I don't want to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and this is already kind of getting into what we're getting into, but HHN's still pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
even though there was a couple mazes that like really didn't land for us,
Yeah.
I'm starting to have to, like, when I talk about least favorites, hit some of the ones that I'm like, no, this is still a solid maze.
It's still fun. We have a stilt walker for
Oh
Big
my God, they had
Bad.
a couple of stilt walkers and they got me.
Yeah.
Like they're tall, they're scary. You know what I mean?
thought
Like
that was pretty cool.
yeah, so there was still some gots in this. It's just overall just not something that necessarily scares me a lot or sticks with me, maybe just because I'm not a fan, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me, I would put Ghostbusters below a Dead Exposure.
Oh,
So
so,
for me-
that's your least number two.
Only because I wasn't necessarily interested in it, and it wasn't very scary for me. It was
Okay.
fun, but I mean,
You
we're
didn't get
ranking-
slimed like I did.
I did not get slimed, and I also didn't get scared by the
stilt.
stilt walker. So there's that. For me, mid was A Quiet Place.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. This is
so-
a hot take.
So and
Hot
again,
take.
we will definitely try and do all of these again from when we go back on Halloween. But Quiet Place for me was it was fun, but it was I think that we were too good at not being scared, and I say that lightly because from my understanding that the technology they're using is for the angels, I forget what they're called in the movie. If you the person walking through the maze freaks out, gets scared. That will trigger a trigger. And then one of these things will pop out
For the
at you.
creatures.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a kind of a new technology. It's a new thing. It's revolutionary sort of in that sort of sense where it's
Yeah.
like they legit have these giant creatures and they actually do react to sound. So it's like the whole time you're walking in, they're doing the whole you're waiting in line and it's giving you all the like, hey, like you have to stay quiet. Like they react to sound, all these things. And you partly are just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the movie. You know what I mean? Like that's what you have to do. You have to be quiet. But it was like real. You did have to be quiet. And it's true that me and Chris aren't normally crazy loud, but I also am like a rule follower. Like if I'm told to be quiet, I'm gonna be quiet. You know what I mean? Like, so I do think we were too quiet. You happened to be leading us, I think, and I was behind you. And then the two chicks behind me were terrified.
super loud.
And were screaming a lot. And so there was a lot of pops that I was close enough to that it could, it felt good for me. I loved the creatures in this.
Yeah,
they were
cool.
so good. Normally you see the creatures like that they've created and like, I mean, they're fake, right? You know it. And like they're animatronic or something like that. But these guys just look so good. Like to me, they look better than they look in the movie. Like that's how good they look to me. And they are like up in your face sometimes. Like they're really close. So you have a lot of time to stare at them and look at them. Holy crap. I can't say enough good things about how good the creatures looked.
Yeah.
And that does a lot for me where I was just like, and then they recreated some more moments in the movie. We had the guy who was like screaming, who, was in the forest and doesn't, and then he has to scream kind of thing. And I really enjoyed this maze.
See,
this is another one that we have to hit again, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think we only hit this one once. And so
traditionally the line has been pretty fast to get through this one. But I will say that too. In terms of the things I really liked, the ones I really liked are just better than this one, in my opinion. But also, shout out the face actors. In this entire maze, everybody was face. There were no masks. At least I don't remember, but they were all face actors, and they were all telling you to be quiet. They were shushing you. They really played into that. I thought that was pretty cool. You do feel like you walk through the movie. You do 100%. The set design is immaculate. I just didn't really get scared because I didn't make too much noise.
Because you were quiet. This is why we know you'd survive.
Next
true,
time
right?
we go through, I'm going to play it like I'm terrified. And we'll see how it goes at that point.
Okie dokie.
Okay. We'll get it on video. We'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we aren't always the quietest people in mazes. A lot of times we're commenting on how things look and stuff. It's just this, I don't know, it told us to be quiet. I was following rules.
Yeah.
But that's what we get for following the rules.
That's what we get. So so now this kind of is close to mid-tier for us at this point. We've kind of knocked out some of the ones we don't love. Where do you filter in some of these mazes now?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, we're getting hard because we're like 4 in at this point.
At this point, these are kind of your top 4 mazes,
Oh
which
my
are
gosh. What are my top 4? Okay. Wait, are we counting Terror Tram in this?
No, I think Terror Tram is its own thing. I think we rate Terror Tram against itself in the past years.
Cool. That helps me. I wouldn't put Quiet Place at my next one. I think I hate to say it. I think I would put Monstros 2 at my next one.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, but again, for me, at least that one's lower than Quiet Place. Quiet Place is higher for me than for you. But I could see how you would do Monstros 2 as your next one too. We were really hyped for this one, which might have hurt it. The creatures they had last year were so good.
It felt very similar to the beginning of last year's, which kind of turned it off for me. The guy in the front, the facade, but anyway, the creatures.
That's true that they should have recreated that a little
Something
bit,
different.
but it's like they wanted to like continue the story almost thing because he's almost like his own crypt keeper kind of guy. But he's supposed to be, I think, like the Reaper or Death or whatever.
I think Danny Trejo voices him too, if I recall.
Oh, interesting. And it is very fun, but I could see how it's it's in the same location and stuff. It has a lot of the same feel going in. And then they did new monsters for this one, which was very nice. And one of them I think absolutely kills. There is the one that comes and does nightmares for kids kind of a thing or whatever that has like the creepy sharp smile.
Oh, the Al Kakui.
Yes. Fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, but sorry, excuse me. Terrifying. But
we're an R-rated podcast. It's fine.
Oh, my bad. What do I do now?
Megaphone. Hit the fucking terrifying.
But there were some other ones that were still really cool. Like they still did good with the creatures. They just, for some reason, they had two different ones that were kind of similar. Like they had one guy who's like on a horse and stuff. And then they had just like a wolf dog
right?
creature. And so when they would have the horse pop out versus the wolf popping out, they looked similar.
Yeah.
The design was similar. They're both kind of deadish, but also amazing to design, I'm still going to say, because they literally would have like slobber coming out of their mouth that's hanging, and it would pop out at you, and it would be like moving, like hanging slobbery.
It looks glistening,
off.
right?
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, it's so cool. Like it's still really cool design and stuff. But yeah, the nightmare one for me was really killer though. Like there was a part where it's like the hands coming out under the bed. And then there was like this shadow on the wall like moving and then would come out of the door kind of a thing.
I missed that.
I tried to point it out to you both times we've gone through. I've seen it both times, and you're always like looking around the room, and I'm always like, look, trying to hit you and point because it's too loud to hear. So I can't be like, next time I'm just going to scream. But I really enjoyed that creature. That creature is really fun.
Got you, that one. And then as you walk in to one of the other, like through and into another part of the maze, looking down at you is Yelkukui, like staring down in your line. That's creepy too. So no, I
super creepy moment.
I had the same notes. Like the dog and the horse feel too similar to me.
Yeah.
If they would have broken it up with something else, that'd been great. It did feel a lot like last year's, even down to like where the little kids were buried in like the walls. So that, because like, well, I felt like you could have done something a little different. It felt a little more recycled. But again, the Kukui part of it, I like. The set is great. And that being said, even if they recycled it, like, you're right. I'm looking around like admiring, oh, the shit, this has got dirt walls in here. They've got like a bedroom. They've got a cave. All of these things in there make such a great like value in terms of like the things you're seeing in this set.
Yeah.
This is very cool. Very cool.
Very cool. And so it's still like, again, we are like in our top 4-ish 5. I guess that one would be like my number 5 technically, because I would put Quiet Place at 4, I think.
Okay.
But that's your number 4, you're saying?
Yeah, basically we have ours swapped basically.
So again, we're in the top ones. Like it was still a killer maze. It's just that, you're always looking for like, why isn't it not in the top 3? That would be why.
Yeah.
Just little like tweaks there and stuff.
And I'm going to say my top 2 is very hard.
I'm having a hard time with these 3 ones for sure.
I think our third's going to be the same.
Okay.
My number 3 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Legacy of Leatherface.
I think you're right. I think that's my
Right?
3 too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
This was cool. I was so worried. I'm like, let's miss this one.
We
Fuck
were
it. We don't
willing
need
to skip this one. We guys 100% were gonna skip this one. If you were gonna skip a maze, it was this one.
This was the one.
This one kept being at a solid, the lowest we ever saw this line was 30 minutes, I think.
I mean, that's the fucking lowest.
The
It was
lowest.
constantly at 45 or higher from when I was looking.
Yeah. So it was like, it just didn't, that's part of it too, is you're like, am I willing to wait in a line that I'm not even excited for this maze? But after you go like 3 times and you're like, why is this still a long line? You end up being like, we probably need to go to this. There's something going on that we need to go see this maze.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And we had the tickets, we got to go do it. And we did. And thankfully we did, because it was so different than all the other times they've done a Leatherface.
That would, to me, was the and isn't it amazing what something that subverts your expectations can do? Because you know what you're getting with Leatherface. You understand the creature, you understand the family. Even if you've never seen it, you get it. You know what it's about. And so they've done this maze so many years in a row, and it's always the same thing. It's always fucking some dinner table, some people eating somebody and whatnot. And just, it's like, okay, well.
And Leatherface popping out in his
the
apron
chainsaw.
and,
We've already seen chainsaws. You walked in for the chainsaw punks, the scare zone. So, but this is completely different because I think they have you walk through as your cattle, right?
Yeah. It's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Legacy of Leatherface. And the outside front was already saying it was like a meat packing place, basically.
Cool facade too.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. And then as you start to go in, it's kind of talking about meat business. Our family's always been in the meat business or something like that, basically.
Yeah.
So they took that effect instead of it being like, you visited somebody's house kind of a thing. It was like, no, we're going to look at the slaughterhouse part of this kind of thing. And don't get us wrong, we actually are usually over that kind of stuff too. I think we talk about that for some of our other ones we went to that take on the whole, here's the slaughterhousey area, the area where we're going to be butchering people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's fake blood and stuff. No, these guys did so good. They were like melting people at points. There was like this part that sticks out to me so much is it's just a pool of blood, like a whole pool to the side of you that has all these body parts like floating in it and stuff. but it's just like deep red, like looks like a pool.
Yeah.
It was so gross.
So we talked about in length about cinema slasher at Not Scary Farm and
Yeah.
how the illusion worked with the fog and whatnot.
Sure.
This again, I don't want to. You have to compare them. This is the difference between HHN and everybody fucking else.
Right.
This was actually water with it looked like decomposing bodies. This could have been in a movie. Like,
Oh,
fucking
100%.
straight up, right?
Like, yeah, that's exactly. And we always talk about that with HHN is that the production value level is just higher. It's made like a set.
Yeah.
It's no longer, oh, these are some props that you could probably find anywhere and kind of, make happen and they don't generally hide things with fog. Like, let's be real, because they don't need to, because it looks that good.
Yeah.
So it was so good. There's also like or actually, I think I'm getting it mixed up. Nope, we're gonna wait. I
Okay.
have something else in my head. But anyways, it was so good. It was so fun. Lots of scary moments.
Yeah.
They were being creepy hillbilly people like they do.
They changed the platform too. Like they're above you because again, I really think that part of it is like your cattle.
I'm happy you said that because I actually hadn't realized that. But you're right. We were walking through kind of pinish areas.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we were like the cattle.
And so they would kind of come above you and they kind of like whack you with
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so that was fun because anytime it changes if you're looking up or down, you know what I mean?
yeah.
As soon as you do that, it changes things.
Yeah.
So that was really good. I got really good. I was looking at like the grandpa or the dad and he's like, hey, talking to me and he's pushing this cart with I think grandpa or somebody in it.
Yeah.
He's like, get him. And then all of a sudden I got hit with a water blast.
Oh my god.
And I got it because I'm staring like, oh, what's he gonna do? Like, where is he gonna go with this thing? And just like the Slimer thing here, a matter of curiosity just smoked me, and he got me so good. And the actor was like, yeah, I got you, and he was in his character. He's like,
In his
yeah,
character,
Grandpa
still
got you, or
saying,
whatever.
yeah.
And I had to give him a thumbs up, like that was a good one because you appreciate
Yeah.
that as a scare actor.
Totally.
There's so few of us.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that. They had some of the characters, like you had mentioned, that were hanging. They were kind of, they're not just skeletons. They're not just skinned people. Like what they did, it was great. It got you really excited. Like, hey, this was fucking worth it.
Yeah,
you know?
it was really fucking good.
Yeah.
And surprisingly good. So
Do you have a moment in there that you remember most?
it was the blood pool.
The blood pool.
Yeah, that's. I know you were in front, so I think you got a lot more of the scares than I did, and I still got spooked and stuff. But the blood pool one was just stood out for me.
You also saw the classic leather Texas Chainsaw scene, which
Oh, I forgot about the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did still throw in that, which I actually thought was excellent. Like at the end, you are kind of exiting sort of like their house. It's like you've just entered their house and are going to exit, which was, I still think, a nice little play to it because they gave us the classic scene from the first movie, which is where he's there in a metal door and like, it's the whole thing where the metal door slams, you know what I mean?
he
But
clubs the guy, pulls him in.
yeah,
and then he slams the door.
he's there now to open the door and kind of like try to club you and slam the door.
I missed it.
You did, yeah. I walked in and I saw like just right after he was pretending to club somebody and then the slam. And so I was like immediately, I did get your attention at least to be like, it's the door, it's the door,
Yeah,
it's
I caught
the
it in
door.
the back end.
So we got to see when he popped out the second time.
And
kind of a
that
thing.
specific scene has inspired me as a filmmaker to try and
Totally.
create that moment. I'm sure it's done to millions of filmmakers, but for me personally, that scene holds such a weighted level in terms of engagement and inspiration. So for them to do that in the maze that Ira was already enjoying was just like cherry on the top.
cherry.
That's why 1, 2, and 3 are very hard for me.
Yeah.
So yes, magic. So how do you want to do this? You want to do 2?
Agree.
I'll do 2. You do 1, and then we can figure out from the same page.
I mean, I think we might be. My 1 and 2 is flip flopped a lot for me.
depending upon.
Yeah, every time I think about it at different times, it's kind of flip flopped. But currently, I sort of feel like we're going to be on the same wavelength on this one again.
All right. So let me go 2, then you go 1. You'll wrap. You'll
Go ahead.
Okay. So my number 2 is The Weeknd.
Yeah, that's where I currently am landing
Is
too.
it?
And I've flip flopped a lot with this one, but currently I'm going to say Weekend is number 2.
So you had to describe The Weeknd in a way that was interesting because tell me how you describe the maze for The Weeknd, because all of these other things in the past, Texas Chainsaw, Bloodlines, you get stuff from the Ghostbusters, Monsters of Latin America. Like, you know what you're going to, it's quiet, you know you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
But for the weekend, how would you describe it? Because we have
Nightmare
no
Trilogy
idea.
is what it's called.
Well, I mean, that being said, but like if you tell people, hey, I went to the weekend maze,
The
they're gonna-
Weekend Nightmare Trilogy. Yeah, I know. So I think this one is so excellent because of the fact that they don't have to follow something specific. It's the same thing. It's like it's all creative mind stuff that they're just doing. You know what I mean? And it's so called Nightmare Trilogy. It feels like you're in different nightmares. Basically, it's still hitting on what the Weekend has kind of done that's made him more popular and things like that, and especially somewhat within the last few years and all, which is like the fame element of stuff. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of fame and vanity and things like that throughout, of course, but it's like that in a nightmarescape. You know what I mean? And it's so good. It's so fun. And of course, like I said, vanity, like the looks and stuff come into play a lot again too. So it's every time you walk into a scene, it can be like whatever the heck it wants to be.
Right, like a fun house.
Yeah, and it is a little bit fun house, I will say, yeah. And the stuff they get to create, the characters that are gonna pop out at you and stuff like that are just wild. It's like they can just look so crazy, and they usually are. It's usually like their mouth is really effed up, or then they have really crazy eyes, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's one dude that we only got to see. We went through this maze 3 times now.
Every time we go. It's that good.
It's that good. The third one actually almost this was
Was
that
horrible.
this was that moment again where we suddenly hit a shift change and we had that moment of like, oh, this could be what it is for other people. If you go through on a shift change, again, this maze now suddenly doesn't stack up.
They would have hated it.
You would have hated it. My most favorite room, which don't get me wrong, the first time I went through, I got a good scare in it and I was really happy about.
And you went first. Like you were.
Yes.
So the first time we went through, you were the first person to kind of catch all this.
And I call it the money room. It's got a bunch of walls of money and then a bunch of walls of mirrors. And there's a guy sitting in what looks like an operating kind of chair or like a tattoo chair, that kind of a thing, a dentist chair or whatever, you know. And he's got the crazy eyes and he's kind of laughing and stuff and looking towards the mirror. And the thing is, this room, the first time we went through, I got popped really good in it because you are looking at him and other things can happen to you. The second time we went through, we got freaking slammed with like every scare that could happen in this room. And that was the best thing, is that it has like 4 different scares or something. In one room,
Yeah,
which is so fantastic. The last time we went through, the guy wasn't in the chair. There was nobody in any of those scare positions. Only at the very end when you're exiting the room was there one person there.
It was fucking horrible.
It was awful. I was like, no, if you walk in this room and none of these things are here, you're like, that was so weak. So again, it could have really suffered. And maybe that's actually could be why it's still in second for me when it's gone back and forth. It was my favorite for the longest time.
Yeah.
But this one, it just has so many good memories of me for jumping out. There's a part where there's these arms that are on the wall. And only one of the times we went through has the person been there in the middle as well.
That's true, yeah.
But that one was great. It stands out to me where he looks like a mirage. Like his face is just like got double layers to it and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Like it looks like you're not focusing right on him and everything. Like it's just so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, giant like eyeball heads, giant like
in a
camera
blackout
heads.
room. In a blackout room, the giant
That's true.
eyeball heads. So
yeah,
like,
the eyeball heads.
you know.
So that's a room where, they're all there and you have to walk through and maybe some of them are real, some aren't,
Yeah.
This one has it just is so fun. And there's the mirrors at the end where like people are gonna pop out at you and move around and it feels funhouse mirrors. And then there's a stilt mirror person who is terrifying.
Which is crazy to have a still walker. Although they're putting more still walkers in mazes, obviously.
It's great.
It is great. That scares the shit out of people.
Yeah. Anything that's above me is like I'm gonna duck,
Drop.
I'm gonna drop. It's gonna
Yeah.
be great. So yeah, this one to me, just because you have all that creative freedom, it's like I didn't know what to expect, and then it blew me away.
I mean, because I didn't have any expectations, I kind of felt the same way. And also, we should talk about the queue line. This is the coolest queue line they've ever fucking had. You're inside. There's a DJ playing in like a facade of purgatory and hell, and with the cityscape and the lights change, and you're just fed like for as long as you're in line, you're hearing like banging Weekend fucking songs. It's great. Like
and they have the DJ up there who looks like the Weekend.
Just like the Weekend,
dancing around, but also acting weird and stuff.
The bullet hole in his head, like he's been shot.
Yeah.
Like he's stuck in purgatory, but he's still playing music.
Yeah.
No, that it's really cool. Also, all the things you had mentioned, to me, one of the ones that got the Money Man, obviously because of how weird it looks, and the guy that pops out of a couple mirrors. another one of them was there's like a giant creature at the end. It's kind of like the one that comes out of like a blackout.
Yes,
And
and it's like part bee insect, part like
yeah,
freaking faces.
it's super weird, and
Oh,
that
it's so
actually,
uncomfortable.
and that was a good pop out like that. But
So
yeah,
even if you don't like The Weeknd, this thing is just so good.
it's because I think it's different. It's fresh. Of all these things that can be nightmarish, my favorite room was the one right after the money room. Was the one like you're in a high rise, and even in the high rise room, what's got like you're on the super. It's night, and they've got facades like you're looking outside. There's like 4 people that come out and scare you there. There's like 4 different places to get tagged.
Yeah, tons of scares in this.
Yeah,
And like not always in expected places, which is really nice.
I really enjoyed this maze too. I thought it was the most refreshing maze I have done outside of American Werewolf in London, which is still my all-time favorite maze that we had done. But like because I didn't have expectations of that,
Yeah.
like I mean, and then this, no expectations, like it just does something to like when that's even remotely good, it's like it transcends good to be great almost.
Yeah, totally.
And how fucking cool is that? Like
That is pretty cool.
you know, so yeah, and again, the only reason this is number 2 for me is because that last run that we did was atrocious. It was borderline worse than the Eternal Bloodlines run on day 1 because you know how good it is when all the pieces are there.
Yeah.
You know, those fuckers behind us, they're like, this maze sucks, and for them they're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But for us, like, hey,
We said it several times. We're like, if this is like the only time you hit this maze, if you are coming for one day and one day only, which most people are,
yeah,
and this is the only time you walk through this maze, this is absolutely the worst maze.
yeah,
It just is.
100%.
So, which leaves us with our number 1.
Yeah,
And so both of us agree it is Insidious the Further.
with a bullet, with a clawed, deviled hand, number 1.
I think we wanted to hit this one, but we were becoming content with like, okay, if we don't hit it because it always again had a long line.
Yeah.
This one kept having a long line. It was hard to get to. It's one of the ones that it's far out. Like you have to go through Harry Potter World and then you're continually walking.
It probably opens early on that early entrance. It probably is on an early entry one, so people no. Do you know it's an early entry?
Yeah, just because I'm like looking at the app right now. So The Weeknd opens at 5:30 and like Quiet Place is 6:30. But no, Insidious doesn't.
Really? So the word is out, people. Like we were late to the game, but and you're completely right. Like if there was a maze, if we have to miss it, wouldn't be heartbroken. I've never been a huge Insidious fan anyway. I like it. I don't like it as much like The Conjuring. I kind of feel like those two are right next to each other for me in terms of like filmmaking and whatnot. But like, it's okay. I can miss it. I'm so glad we fucking did it.
I know. I was gonna say again, we'd gone 2 times at this point. We'd gone 2 different times, and we're like, there's 3 mazes we haven't hit. And it became that point where it's like, okay, we're going a 3rd time. Let's just go to those ones. Let's just go ahead and do it. The second time we went, we were like being casual. And we're like, well, we really want to hit this one again, and then we'll go look. And we just didn't want to wait in lines. But this one, we just knew no matter what, with the plan we're going in, this will be the lowest these lines are because we've seen twice that they are long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And agree. Yeah, we would hit this one first on our 3rd visit. And it was very much worth it.
It was a banger. I mean,
holy crap.
Yeah, first of all, their facade is actually, it's not super impressive. Although it does have the do 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 do. And you know when you
tiptoe.
That's it. Yeah.
No.
And it's got the red demon in the window, and he kind of looks out at the crowd every now and then.
Through the window.
I'm like, how do I reach that high note? Just kidding.
You can't switch this. It's too good. But yeah, and so I'm like, all right, well, we were hyped about it. I had heard from one of our friends who had worked at HHN through people at the Grapevine. They were saying that one is the banger of the season, and it was. And
they aren't wrong.
For me, the maze, first of all, it's incredible. It's dark. It's so dark. It feels like you're in a void almost. And
it's very dark.
And
it's close quarters.
Yeah, it's claustrophobic. It's completely dark.
I had to point out they had there's always the people who are there to kind of steer you in the right direction, lead you in the way,
blackout.
Keep moving usually. And there usually are in the blackout areas or areas that are a little confusing to wave you the right direction. This maze had so many of those people, especially in the beginning, and they were in rooms that had stuff happening and they were still trying to like, keep going this way, keep going. And it's like, they just knew.
Did you notice that their flashlights weren't on?
Yeah.
So because they didn't want to ruin the facade.
They
That's
still
how
weren't-
dark it was.
Yeah, they still didn't want to ruin what was going on, which was great. But it was funny because it's like, yep, you got the scare. Now keep moving. Like,
Yeah.
they were like, we got so much to get you through. You could see it. It could get scary enough that you try to jump back, that you don't want to go past it because you're in tight quarters.
Yeah.
So it's like they almost needed to have these people here just to make sure that they continually get people through.
This is the maze that I think that reminded people of what it feels like to be scared in a maze.
Yeah.
You know, because generally it is tight quarters. There could be something happening in front of you, or like you said, we are on tight lines. If they push back, if they're
Yeah.
talking to their friend or their boyfriend, oh, I don't want to go in, and that takes 5 seconds, right?
Totally.
It's like, let's get this show on the road because we're
Yes.
lining, okay.
And
So,
oh, sorry.
No, but I'm
I was
just
gonna say,
stating a
and
point.
on that same line, like we've talked about in the past that when we go through these mazes, a lot of times to help us get more scares, we will like slow down. We will try to create some space between us and the people in front of us, so that way we don't enter a room and get the tail end of a scare.
That's
We're
the
like,
worst.
yeah, it's kind of, and then you don't get the scare when you're in there. It's like, if anything, you're like, oh, if you can hear there's a scare ahead of you in a room, let me see if I can kind of pause a little bit before I go in the room.
a great
And you
plan.
got to do it. You have to do it in a way that's not disruptive to everybody. You're not trying to just straight on stop and like stop the whole line,
Right.
but just, you walk through room slower. You look around. Look, there's plenty to look at in most of these
Oh my
rooms, by
God,
the way.
yeah.
They are full on like sets, basically.
they can be like actual filming sets or museum
Yes.
sets.
So there's
Like,
plenty to look at. This maze, there were so many people like waving you through. There's so many people going through that you really couldn't slow down, I would say. And it wasn't a problem. Like that's the thing that stands out to me in this
Yeah.
one, because the rooms were so tight and it was, you know what I mean, really dark. It wasn't an issue that we were stuck in the conga line.
yeah.
When usually it is for us, but this time it was like, even in a conga line, this was still fantastic.
I feel like part of the claustrophobia in terms of how close you are,
Yeah.
the actors felt like they were right on top of you. Like there's a part, a very famous part in the movie, when the lady in white jumps out and she reaches out and says, "You did this." What did she say?
Don't you dare!
Don't you dare. She pops out of this door, and I felt like she was on top of me. I felt like her finger was
Oh
going to scratch
my
my eye. Like,
God, that lit us up so bad.
yeah.
That was a fantastic.
Yeah.
But even the like the creatures, like the red demon-y faced like freaking thing, it's like when it pops out is right there half the time.
Yeah.
Like so many times it would pop out and I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's so close to you.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I think that maybe the movie, they draw on the further and kind of like, from what I know about the movie, like you're on this path and on the outsides of the path is like evil and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like that, maybe that played into it. And that'd be a great call, John, if it was John Murdy. But it was so good. Like,
Yeah.
and the way they lit these actors, their triggers were the most on point that I had been through in any of the mazes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, yeah, we're going back. Like we're doing
Yes.
Insidious for sure again, because it lives on this platform for us right now where it's like, oh, that was fantastic, and you don't ever want to like, well, was it fantastic or was it shit? We had that unfortunate weekend run on the third run where nobody was there, which will be terrible for this one. It would be
Yeah.
like, oh my God. But right now, yeah, Insidious for number one with a bullet. We got scared so many times, even like you said in the conga line, you're still getting tagged. You're still getting scared. The scares are still effective, even though there's 100 people behind you and 200 in front of you. Like,
Yeah.
it just works.
And then there was a really good moment for us too, where we walked into a bathroom and someone was puking, and it's awful. They put the stupid smell in there and everything, and which was just terrible. You like hate, like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome when they put the smell in there. It's really like submersive and stuff. It makes you believe it. It makes you feel viscerally disgusted.
Yeah.
But it's awful. And so we had that, and then we were going through some curtains and they were wet, and it was like, oh, why is this wet? And I was like, well, it's probably because we just came out of the bathroom. It's like grossly on theme. You and I barely get into this area, and it's like as tight as a shower stall, basically.
Yeah.
Only the two of us could be in between these two curtains, and we get lit the frick up from the dark from a person who is puking his guts out
Yeah.
right on us, like full on spray. Oh my God.
It was horrible. Like I kept smelling myself. The way that your brain puts together
that is vomit.
Yeah, like it's fucking perfect. And again, I got to give it to Universal, man. Like they're again, They're number
So-
one for a fucking reason.
So
Like,
inventive,
yeah.
so great. Like that was just so fantastically done.
and that wasn't even the end of the maze. Like we're still
No.
going through it. You know what I mean? So like some of our bigger scares happen towards the end, and then anybody that knows kind of walks out. You get some big pops at the end.
It's like a classic HHN thing to do.
Yeah.
That it's like you're gonna get lit up on your way out.
Yeah.
They've come off of it a bit in the last couple of
They
years.
have, right?
Yeah, and so it was actually kind of nice to have it in this one again.
Yeah.
This one at the end, you had that
like
moment
4
where
of
you're
them.
just going through about 4 small, dark little corridors, and each one is gonna have a creature popping out to scare you. Just boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
It was very cool.
It
yeah.
was
Because
it was great.
I love it in here. I fucking love it.
Fucking love it. Yeah, so that's kind of our rundown for mazes. I'm anxious to go back on Halloween and see if things still are where we plant them. I feel
Yeah.
like my top 3 will still be there for the
Yeah.
most part. But yeah, it'll be cool. You know?
Agree. I think it will be. I don't think it'll change too much. And then Terror Tram's the last one that was there.
And Terror Tramp for me is something we can always miss. Like I'm never like
Sure,
we
Chris
gotta
is-
go to Terror Tramp.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Some
that
people
guy.
love it. Most people kind of understand they could skip it. Because you just aren't in the close corridors. It's wide open. It's a lot harder to actually get like real scares. But they like set things up to like have scenes and stuff like that. You know what I
In
mean?
the past or like this one.
Usually in general they will try to set it up that it's like, you'll have like at least when you're walking through the Bates Motel, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
motel part
Yeah.
of that or whatever, it's like they will try to set up certain things. This year with Blumhouse, I feel like it's been one of the best years I've seen.
It's 100%.
They
yeah.
did such a good job with it, with creating, like I said, these scenes. Plus, you could pass through different movies, and I think that's exactly what you want to do for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the way, and they've never really separated it. For Terror Tramp, you're just kind of walking through, like you said, it's uninspiring and unenthusiastic. Here, you have like the front of the house, like the Blum house,
Yeah.
right? And they've got this tape in front of it, and it looks like it's lit. It looks like you're walking into like a movie theater in some
Yeah.
ways. And then from there, it takes you into the maze. It's been themed with either Happy Death Day or Megan or The Purge.
Yeah.
It was fucking great. Fair amount of jumps too. Like they actually felt like they were trying to scare you and not just kind of wave at you as you're walking by creepily. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, there
Even,
were some jumps.
The black phone guy. The black phone guy.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was good.
He reached out to you, trying to offer you some were they
Balloons.
balloons?
He was trying to give me the balloons, and I said no, and he said yes.
Yeah.
No, it was really like honestly, right when you pull up is always kind of exciting. There's always generally there's a few people on the bus who've never done it before and are really surprised when they have to get kicked off, which is really fun.
Yeah.
This one was so cool because they had Megan out there alone and she was doing her famous dance, which is like, the very popular TikTok freaking dance of her like moving around and stuff, which I thought was actually really cute, right? When you're pulling up, I was like,
Yeah.
that's actually pretty fun to come up to. And then they had like they usually have like a whole start where they had a bunch of their characters come out. Me and Chris are so funny. We're just like, all right, we're ready. We start walking through and all these characters are coming out to pose and like do the thing to the music and then
Yeah.
like start attacking everybody. And we were like, we're just gonna keep moving.
We walked too far. We were past
did. We were
everything.
past
yeah.
everything.
So
I was like, we're the experts here. We don't
Yeah.
we don't wait to get killed. We're like, excuse us.
keep it moving, guys. Keep it moving.
But it was great.
Yeah.
They did Freaky in the area that I talked about with the Bates Motel and stuff. And so that was fun to see all the girls in the leather jackets that were either playing the killer part or they had the Vince Vaughn looking dude who's like they're chasing and stuff, you know what I mean? Or vice versa. Like,
Oh yeah.
it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. That one, the guy from the black phone.
Yeah, the black phone area was really good too, I think.
They have a great photo op to Hollywood with the creatures there, and we're definitely going to get a picture of that next time we're there.
Yeah.
By the way, I think that's free now too, and I also think the Bates Motel one is free. Traditionally, they haven't been. You've had to
Yeah.
buy those separately, which is interesting.
The photo op and now you can just take a picture.
Yeah,
That's cool.
For me, the one that I loved was oh my god, I can't. The Purge. And The Purge, as you walk through, for anybody who's done the studio tour or Terror Tramp, it's when you go through the destroyed city, right? From War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
The crash, or World War Z, the crash jet, the helicopter, not the helicopter, the jet in the neighborhood. Because it's purgy, it plays into it.
Totally.
You know,
You felt like this could be straight out of the Purge.
100%. It was the best marrying of a Blumhouse movie and a Universal set that I've ever seen. It was dark.
I agree.
It was foggy. You know, the characters were purgy,
Yeah.
which is not new, but like the scope of it is new, you know?
Yeah, because I think like early on when we would first start going, was the only other time it worked really well, which was when they would do like Walking Dead still out there. And when they did that too, it was still kind of cool to be like, oh, post-apocalyptic. There's like the plane crash and we still like there's zombies around. That could feed into it. But I'm with you that every other year you go, you're kind of like, why is there a crashed plane here? And it looks cool to look at it because it's a great, big, awesome set, but it doesn't fit with whatever theme they're doing.
Yeah.
But you're right. Purge there made perfect sense.
Yeah.
It was great.
I thought it was great. It was a tighter maze too. Traditionally, or in the past, they've had Jupiter's, I think, landing. It's not landing, but whatever it is from
the one from Nope.
From Nope, yeah, they cut that out,
That
which
scene.
I think that it made it for a tighter. It felt like a maze. It felt like this is something that would play, and so it was tight. It moved fast. It was gloriously lit. I think that it was on brand for theming. People loved it. It moved. It was fucking great. The best that Terror Time has been in fucking years. Easy.
So I think overall, in conclusion, we're basically saying as much as we weren't excited for HHN, it ended up still being a banger. It ended up still killing it. There was like 2 mazes we're talking about that we weren't huge fans of.
Yeah.
But everything else, it's like we would go and do again.
And that's the thing, right? Like even on the third go through, when we walk through, you got to find parking, you got to get out, you got to get to the gate, you get scanned in, you checked in. It's like, oh, this is the 3rd time I've been here. Even on that, as soon as you get your ass to the point where you can start seeing the scare actors, you can hear them.
Yeah.
You can, you see the fire, like things flip.
It's
And
hype every time.
Hype, right?
Yeah, you could be really tired and then show up and then just be like, let's go, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think HHN is one of those can't miss things. If you do one thing a year, I always say, Knott's is a great value. It is. You know, for immersiveness, JFI is great. It is. If you can only do one thing a year for Halloween, for me, it's HHN.
I'll take that as a yes.
There you go.
What about you?
I always say I still think it's the scariest one. Like hands down, you will get like pop scares at everything else, but this one will get you to the point where you might drop. You know what I mean? Like you might full on fall over from being scared. Your heart will be thumping. Your adrenaline will be going.
Yeah.
That's
not an exaggeration. That's fucking true.
That's the truth of how I feel about Halloween Horror Nights. So if you're wanting that, then yeah, it's kind of hard to replace this one. You know what I mean? If you love more of the ambiance, you don't need to be like having your heart freaking hurting when you come out of a maze.
Knots.
Then yeah, there's some other ones you can go to, and Knots is still solid. I still love it for what it is.
Sure.
But when people start talking about what's really scary or things like that, then I'm always like, for me, it's HHN until you start pushing for like more extreme events, like where you're going to get touched and things like that.
That's true.
You want it, then that's a different level. But if you're just talking about going to a theme park, something like that, then that's, for me, it's HHN.
Yeah. With a bullet. I agree.
Oh my gosh, these bullets. They're just flying.
Well, I don't have anything else to say about HHN other than fucking go. Yes, go.
Yes.
They are open till November 2nd. I'll say that. I think you do get another Saturday after Halloween. So, but if for any of you haven't gone and you hear this, you're like, fuck it, I wish I could have. You still can. November 2nd is the wrap up date for most of these big box events, Knott's, HHN, and whatnot. So if you have the hankering to hit something after Halloween, this is probably one of the couple offerings you can do. And if you haven't gone, with a bullet, go.
With a bullet, apparently. And also, they'll be back again next year. Every year they come back. So we love it. Unless there's another pandemic, let's just knock on some wood there or something.
We don't talk about that. Well,
anyways.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So for Chris.
And Jessica.
Talk to you all later.